Welcome back, friends. You're just in time for the Johnny Brew Show.
Last night in Kabul, the United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. We completed one of the biggest airlifts in history, with more than 120,000 people evacuated to safety. That number is more than double what most experts thought were possible. No nation has ever done anything like it in all of history. Only the United States had the capacity and the will and ability to do it, and we did it today. The extraordinary success of this mission was due to the incredible skill, bravery, and selfless courage of the United States military and our diplomats and intelligence professionals. For weeks, they risked their lives to get American citizens, Afghans who helped us, citizens of our allies and partners and others on board planes and out of the country. And they did it facing a crush of enormous crowds seeking to leave the country. And they did it knowing ISIS-K terrorists, sworn enemies of the Taliban, were lurking in the midst of those crowds. And still, the women and men of the United States military, our diplomatic corps, and intelligence professionals did their job and did it well, risking their lives, not for professional gains, but to serve others. Not in a mission of war, but in a mission of mercy.
Welcome, everybody. My name is John Brookhagen, host of the Johnny Brew Show, and thank you so much for joining us. We are officially out of Afghanistan. But actually, we, as Americans, might not all be out of Afghanistan. Play tape.
I believe that about 100 to 200 Americans remain in Afghanistan with some intention to leave. Most of those who remain are dual citizens, long-time residents who had earlier decided to stay because of their family roots in Afghanistan. The bottom line, 90% of Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to leave were able to leave. And for those remaining Americans, there is no deadline. We remain committed to get them out if they want to come out. Secretary of State Blinken is leading the continued diplomatic efforts to ensure safe passage for any American, Afghan partner, or foreign national who wants to leave Afghanistan. In fact, just yesterday, the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution that sent a clear message about what the international community expects the Taliban to deliver on moving forward, notably freedom of travel, freedom to leave. And together, we are joined by over 100 countries that are determined to make sure the Taliban upholds those commitments. Now we...
All right. So, I remember when Joe Biden was campaigning for president. I think he campaigned on 4 different occasions beginning in the 80s. He was found to be a plagiarist, and we've gone through that. You can look up season 1, little history on Joe Biden from the Johnny Brew Show. But you do notice throughout his career, he has said, this is the country where we leave no more than 10% behind. It doesn't really ring a bell. I've heard many times he said what separates America from other people is that we don't leave anybody behind. And now here he is, 6 months into his presidency, as we lose the respect of our allies and of our adversaries. As we leave 10% behind, And he keeps talking about this airlift, this historic airlift. Who is being airlifted out of Afghanistan is what I want to know. I heard of a bunch of kids from California of Afghan descent who went home to visit family for the summer that are still stuck there. I heard of a 3-year-old being stuck there. I heard of a translator who saved Biden's butt. And I think it was 2008 or 2009. He's still stuck there. I'm seeing, and if you're not sure, I didn't want to steal her thunder, but Michelle Mortensen came back this week, and if you check out her show, she shows you American passports being denied entry to the airfield to even get close to the airport. She showed a video, which I had previously seen without the blacked out portion, but she showed the video of them doing mass executions on the side of the road. Taliban or ISIS-K? Did Joe Biden just say Taliban and ISIS-K are mortal enemies? That is not what I heard from a single person who has been over at Afghanistan. They say that ISIS, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, they're all like teams in the same league. Sometimes people are free agents, and one year they'll fight for ISIS, the next year they'll fight for Al-Qaeda. Oh, what's going on now? Okay, I'm with the Taliban. Because now I bet you the Taliban grows real good. They got lots of equipment. Let's see, how are things going for the Taliban? Play tape. So it looks like they're having a nice little parade. State-of-the-art Humvee personnel carriers, weapons, and I guess that's Taliban flags. You do realize 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, every time something's going on, we're going to be fighting against our own state-of-the-art equipment. And sure, maybe 50 years from now it won't be state-of-the-art, but they'll still have it. They've never had these vehicles, these helicopters, these night vision goggles. That was our advantage. We are Americans. We are the strongest, most determined, toughest in the whole world. But that's not our singular advantage. Our advantage is technology. Our advantage is communication. Having retinal scans so we really know who people are instantly. They didn't have that technology. Now they do. Were you an Afghan interpreter for the United States Army? Oh, no. Well, let's scan your eyeball and find out if you're telling the truth. Oh, you lied to us. You're dead. And that's how they do it. They don't go to court. They don't discuss these things. They don't figure out the truthfulness or how much somebody helped the Americans or went against the Taliban. They get a smidgen of evidence, boom, right outside your house or inside your house, in front of your family. It's done that way on purpose. Gruesome, on purpose. So, the next time we have to go protect American interests, we will have no allies on the ground. Because these families, these children will remember their father or mother getting executed for being an interpreter, or the mother gets executed for simply going to elementary school. They'll say, no, we are not going to help Americans. I don't care how much they promise, how much peace, how much freedom they promise. Women are not going to go to school in 30 years when they are liberated, hopefully, again. The women are going to say, no, my mother went to school. For 20 years, the Americans were here. And my mother went to school. And now that my mother has an education, she got executed. People are being executed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Gay people are being executed. They're being hunted down as if it's the Hunger Games, some kind of a surreal horror movie. These Taliban, even if they have changed, which they haven't, these are Islamic fundamentalists who have been this way for, I think it's 800 years. And there's only one goal: Sharia law in the caliphate. And now, Trump took out the caliphate in Syria and Iraq. ISIS was building a caliphate. Their dreams were coming true. Obama was letting them build a caliphate. Trump stomped it out. He did not acknowledge any deals that Obama might have had with ISIS or Iran. Trump went in there and squashed the caliphate. Say what you will about Trump. His foreign policy in dealing with the disasters left to us by Obama, North Korea and the ISIS caliphate in Syria and Iraq, they were infinitely worse than the situation Trump left Biden in Afghanistan. And what did Trump do? He stomped it out. And you know what was the beginning of the end of Trump? In 2017, when Trump was in a meeting with the chief of staffs and all of the military generals, and he looked them all in the eye like a leader does, and he called a spade, and he goes, "You guys are losers. You guys are used to losing. You guys make plans which will result in losing. You've been making progress for 20 straight years. How do you make progress for 20 straight years and see no difference from one decade to the next?" So Trump was calling them losers. And he was trying to make them see the forest for the trees and make a difference. And instead of heeding the call of the commander-in-chief, our Constitution says that a civilian will lead the military forces. But when Trump made that accusation of the military being full of losers that aren't fighting to win, even though they have the capability, they have the means, they have the budget, they have the equipment to win, they're not playing to win. And instead of the military saying, "Oh yeah? Are you challenging me? You want to see me use this technology, use this manpower, use this infinite budget to win?" And go in there and clean up Afghanistan once and for all so we could withdraw? They decided that they were going to start making decisions on their own. They decided that we were no longer going to heed the call of the civilian commander-in-chief. They decided to turn their back on the oath they made to the Constitution. And we didn't only leave 10% of the American civilians that were there. We left more than that percent of green card holders. Green card holders have the same exact rights on the international scene as an American citizen. While things might be different here domestically for a green card holder, if you are in Italy, Africa, South America, or China, if you have a green card, you have every right as an American citizen to our embassies, to our support, and to our defending you and getting you out of a bad situation. They were left behind. The real helpers during the 20-year war in Afghanistan, like, I'm just spitballing, like 80, 90% of them have been left behind. Yet, they airlifted 120,000 people out of Afghanistan. Who? Who are these people? You know, the left calls me a hypocrite because I want to close the border, but I want to help the Afghan nationals that help the U.S. Army. But I don't want all of Afghanistan here. I'm saying the guys that these military personnel are vouching for, that were in holes, that they were in Humvees, avoiding roadside bombs, risking their life. Those are the people I'm talking about. 5,000, 10,000. The people, the Afghans who worked at the embassies and the State Departments, another 5,000, 10,000. And then all of the SIV special immigrant visas, all of the green cards, and every damn single American civilian. For us to not have a single gun or boot on the ground while there are American civilians in that hellhole being taken over by Islamic fundamentalists, I think that's treason. What does Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin think it is? Play a tape.
Concluded our historic evacuation operation and ended the last mission of the U.S. war in Afghanistan. America's longest war has come to a close. Now, both as Secretary and as a veteran of our Afghan war, my thoughts have been with the brave Americans who stood up to serve after Al-Qaeda attacked us on September 11, 2001. And my heart is with their families and loved ones, and with our friends and allies, and with our fellow citizens whose lives were lost or changed forever over 20 years of war.
All right. So he thinks it was historic. He's very proud of himself. I heard him in another speech talking about how heroic his decisions were, how brave he was. Lloyd Austin was worried about Trump voters in the military when he should have been worried about the withdrawal from Afghanistan that apparently was being planned. He should have figured out how to get every American civilian out before withdrawing the military. He should have had a plan for if the airstrip in Kabul was hit by a mortar or a rocket or a suicide bomber. I mean, thankfully that didn't happen, but all it took was one grenade to blow a hole where the runway was. But we only had one airstrip. We didn't have the second airstrip. We didn't have the city on lockdown. Joe Biden, apparently, number one, he told the Afghani president, the you-know-what that he is, the thief, how about that, to lie about the perception of the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Infinitely worse than what Donald Trump was impeached for on the call with the Ukrainian president. Blatantly asking him to lie for political gain. Trump was inquiring about a political opponent. Biden was telling the guy who we gave the job to and gave all this money to lie on behalf of America, to make Biden look good. And what did he do? As soon as he got that call, he started stuffing all his money in a sack, and he waited for the word, and he got out of Afghanistan. One of the richest men in the world now. Good for him. And Secretary Austin was doing a 6-month pause in the military in order to find out if we had Trump voters or white nationalist extremists or whatever they're called, whatever the big terror threat is. Here's Psaki responding to that phone call that I was just talking about with Biden and the Afghan president. Play tape.
That we'd like to confirm regarding a call in July, between President Biden and former Afghanistan President Ghani. One, that both leaders appeared completely unaware that the Taliban would take over, and secondly, that they discussed plans to project that Afghan forces were still in control. Is that accurate? Can you tell us a little bit more about that call?
Well, I'm not going to get into private diplomatic conversations or leaked transcripts of phone calls. But what I can reiterate for you is that we have stated many times that no one anticipated, the vast majority, I should say, there may have been individuals and agencies, so I don't want to eliminate that option, but our national security team and no one in Congress, or I would say most people out in the public, anticipated that the Taliban would be able to take over the country as quickly as they did, or that the Afghan National Security Forces would fold as quickly as they did. So even the content of the reporting is consistent with what we've said many times publicly. I'll also note something that the president said in his press conference around the same time of this reported phone call. The Afghan government and leadership has to come together. They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place. The question is, will they generate the kind of cohesion to do it? And what the president conveyed publicly and certainly privately as well, repeatedly to Afghan leaders, as did our national security officials, is that it's important that the leaders in Afghanistan do exactly that, lead, and show the country that they are ready to continue to the fight against the Taliban, that they have the will for the Afghan National Security Forces to continue that fight, even as our U.S. forces.
You know, Psaki, and I've been watching a lot of clips on Psaki, like before she was the president's spokesman, and she's like an expert at avoiding questions. Like I seen her talking about Egypt in some other clip from 2017. And she was caught on a hot mic saying, oh my God, I can't even deal with these talking points they give me because they're so farcical. But nonetheless, she won't answer the question because it was leaked. But meanwhile, she was more than willing to answer the question about the leaked Steele dossier, about the military leaking reports of Russians putting bounties on Americans' head. That was false, which was part of the military's campaign against Donald Trump. She was more than willing to speak about a private phone call between the president and the president of Ukraine when it was politically expedient. But then, when there's a leak about Hunter Biden's laptop, we're not allowed to talk about it. When there's a leak about President Biden talking about lying to the world public in order to score political points, she won't comment on that either. You know, this is a real travesty what's going on in Afghanistan. From the short-term ramifications of the executions I was alluding to, of the people who are still stuck there, the school kids from California, the 3-year-old, the translator, the State Department Afghanis. But then you couple that with all the military equipment that this terrorist organization now has. And then you couple that with open borders on our southern border. You know, I don't want to say what we did in Afghanistan was in vain, nor the 2,500 American soldiers who lost their lives over there, or the 100,000 soldiers that lost a piece of them over there. It was not in vain. We've had no terrorist attacks. We brought the fight to them for 20 years when there is a terrorist attack, the reason why we have our servicemen and women dying is because they are over there. They're in Afghanistan. The fight is over there. The terrorism is happening over there. It's not happening here. But now that they've got a base of operations, now that they've got military equipment to guard this base of operations, now that they have an open border on our southern border, I am really, really scared about what that's going to mean. And we're not going to know. And by the time it happens, which could be in 6 months, it could be in 6 years, Biden's either going to be in a nursing home or he's going to have passed away. By the time the bill comes from all this spending, Biden will be in a nursing home or he will have passed away. He's not going to see what happened as a result of his decisions. But I know for sure, from the economics to the foreign policy to the wokeness driving this administration, mark my words, Joe Biden will be remembered as the worst president ever in the United States. Yet he got the most votes of any single person ever in the history of mankind. One last thing before we wrap it up. I just wanted to address the Texas abortion issue. They have a new law, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court, that once you hear the heartbeat, you can no longer abort, which is about the 6-week mark. And, I'm a Christian. I believe life begins at a conception. I believe that once the X and Y chromosome hit, that's a human being. I was once that size. We all were. But I also understand that part of my belief in this, besides the obvious medical, these things turn into people, like with jobs and Americans who love this country, or some who don't, it's still a person. But maybe it's my religious background, my Christianity, that makes me believe that. Well, I don't think that's entirely true. I think it's science also. But let's assume that's the case. Maybe some people don't believe what I believe in. And we're in America and we live in a free country. I feel like this is the ultimate negotiation. This is the ultimate giving in. Okay, you can get an abortion. But once the heart is beating, let's just say, okay, now it's a human, you can't get an abortion. And nobody's going to jail, but doctors can be sued, which will make them think twice before doing it. This is how Psaki responds when a reporter asks about Biden's Christianity or Catholicism regarding the abortion issue. Play tape.
Texas law, why does the president support abortion when his own Catholic faith teaches abortion is morally wrong?
Well, he believes that it's a woman's right, it's a woman's body, and it's her choice.
Why does the president, who does he believe then should look out for the unborn child?
He believes that it's up to a woman to make those decisions, and up to a woman to make those decisions with her doctor. I know you've never faced those choices, nor have you ever been pregnant, but for women out there who have faced those choices, this is an incredibly difficult thing. The president believes their rights should be respected. Go ahead. I think we got to move on. I think we have to move on. You've had plenty of time.
You know, she is such a itch in my side. But first of all, I thought they were birthing people. And once we said that men can have babies and we started taking away genders, we no longer have the first woman vice president, because it's just another non-binary person. Number two, now men are in the discussion. If men can be birthing people just like women, that means we are now allowed to be part of the discussion, okay? You can no longer have that chip on your shoulder and say that we can't even talk about it. Number three, you're talking about a decision between a woman and her doctor about ending a third person's life. So that's not my body, my choice. That's a third person who cannot speak for themselves. And how do you not see the hypocrisy where a woman and her doctor can decide that the vaccine is not the right choice for them, but you're going to encourage companies and government entities like CCSD to mandate the vaccine? That's a great segue. Don't forget to check out our mandatory vaccine CCSD special board meeting that played live last night, but it's available now on YouTube. Hit us up at thejohnnybrewshow.com and make sure you subscribe. The Johnny Brew Show at gmail.com. I'm so sorry. And please subscribe, share. We're getting the word out. Guys, I'm not trying to be partisan. I'm just trying to be logical. And that's what you're going to get from me. I'm going to salute the troops who save our freedom abroad every day. I'm going to thank our cops who save our freedom here at home. And I'm going to call out the BS, all right? We got a bunch of stuff going on. We're going to be covering that CCSD board meeting where they voted to mandate vaccinations. And we're going to be talking about the latest drama with the Clark County CCRP. My name is John Brookhagen. Thanks for joining us. We'll get you next time.